Pablo, it's good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Joe.
In a little new domain for you and I to actually have these conversations.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting to be in a completely different space, equally exciting as OR.
Yeah, and near both of our end of our tenure at Verb, I remember us having a conversation and our discussion around. I said, Pablo, what do you want to do? You're like, I need to make sure I get a product into the OR,
That's right.
and that's where you are right now.
So yeah, I mean that product was submitted for an IDE as recently as
I
last
saw that.
week. So I'm really
saw
happy
that.
about that. So let's hope that it goes forward. And now our focus is getting a product into the Cath lab, also bringing some technology solutions that can help the workflow and some of the decision making.
When you had that conversation with Amr, again, Laza is at Shifamed for those that don't know. When you had that conversation with Amr, you had I'm guessing you had a pre-existing aperture around general surgery. What was it that convinced you that you could take your thinking and incorporate it into the Cath lab? What was it about the Cath lab in particular that you looked at it and go, where am I going to apply all this knowledge I have?
Well, so first of all, the thing that got me excited is that I knew nothing about the Cath lab.
Knowing
I was going to
Pablo,
get
I
to
got
learn
that.
a whole new thing. So that was one of the most attractive things. But as I started getting into it, it really became apparent to me that some of the same type of dynamics and needs and some of the lessons that we had learned in the OR could also be applied to the Cath lab. So a lot of the Cath lab is a really interesting environment because it's inherently image guided. You're doing a procedure where you're just looking at images. If in minimally invasive surgery, you're looking at a video screen, but you're still having quite a bit of direct interaction with the body of the patient, and here is very minimal. And I just saw a lot of opportunity to do a lot with starting with the images to enhance the whole procedure, because the same as in robotics, a good robot with bad images is not really much. A good imaging system with even a lousy robot is a really potentially interesting system, and that's kind of what the situation are with the Cath lab, where there's a lot of opportunity to enhance the imaging that can really benefit the whole interaction with the structures that you're trying to deliver therapy to.
Well, now when you talk about imaging, there's obviously fidelity of image, but then there's also reconstruction and reference images that you can call up, ask for at any time, because that's really important in the structural space.
So for me, I mean, I kind of put all this in that this is information that you need to do whatever it is that you need to be doing. And every step of the procedure just requires a different type of information. In some cases, it might be that it's a reconstruction that allows you to navigate to a spot, but it can be a very simplified reconstruction, almost like a cartoon. In some other cases where you try to deploy leaflets and do a mitral clip and so on, it might be that you want a lot of detail about the interaction between the leaflets and the device that you're actually trying to interact with. And that's the beauty about some of these intelligent systems, that you can tailor. If you understand what the workflow is, and you're incorporating information from ultrasound, from the fluoro, from the CT, you can put all that information together in a way that is tailored towards optimizing the task that you're trying to accomplish.
So an image where you need a high signal data set, high fidelity, that's what I need. Where I need less and I could take more of a basic image, good enough.
Yes.
And just being able to dial that back and forth.
Yeah, and this is a little bit like in software development or writing, less is more.
Yeah.
So the trick is to provide the minimum that you need, because if you provide more, you're just overloading the brain. And so the trick is, how much can you take away, and can you get to the essence of what it is that you need to accomplish your task? And in some cases, that's a very simple representation on what it is that is going to help you accomplish that task.
So I, I walked into this conversation with the assumption that our viewers know what Laza was doing,
Yes.
and the technology. So take us through what the basics of the technology are, Pablo, and then why should it matter?
Yeah. So it's really interesting what's happening in structural heart. The procedures are getting more complex. The devices are getting more sophisticated, and that requires better imaging. And imaging is really, it's not just a tool, it's an enabler. In many cases, the success or the failure of a deployment of a certain device is going to be completely dependent on the quality of the images that you get. But even the way that you think about designing the device is very much anchored on what it is that you can actually assume that you can see. And so that's one trend. But even today, there's a scarcity of imagers, and there's just not enough of those guys to basically support not only the existing procedures but the planned growth over the next few years. So now you have volume growth, complexity growth, and a situation where you already are short on skilled imagers. And so in many cases what happens is that the bottleneck for providing a procedure is not the therapy, it's actually the availability of an imaging skill. And really, skilled interventionists will not want to do a complex procedure without their best, most trusted imager. So that's the problem we're trying to address. So the system that we're designing is a system that is you're going to use robotics and AI to provide an imaging solution that can interface with an interventional cardiologist as an extension of the imaging specialist to provide them the images that they need on demand, right? So this is still a tool from the imaging cardiologist in the sense that they will be the ones responsible for the images that come out of it. They're the ones setting it up and reviewing and making sure that the maps the system produces are accurate. But once the system is set up, it can be turned over to the interventional cardiologist, and they can be requesting the images that they need at every step of the procedure without having to tweak through it or without having to have somebody with 15 years of education and 10 years of experience moving a couple of wheels and being exposed to X-ray.
So what does that look like moving forward for the Cath lab environment? I mean, is this going to simplify things, remove a head count, or just increase the effectiveness of the head count?
It's going to force multiply the capacity of an imager to support procedures. So you might spend 5-10 minutes setting up the system. At that point, the imager doesn't have to be directly babysitting the system. They can be somewhere else in the Cath lab reviewing other echoes, they can be in the control room, or they can be running another case that requires their attention, because we want to use, this is about efficient resource utilization. You want to use the imager where their basically contribution matters. If there's a complex tricuspid case, that's when they need to be present. But if there's a routine, simple set of steps for a left atrial appendage closure procedure, there's no need for an imager to be tied up in that procedure. So they might be able to be controlling multiple procedures at the same time. That's kind of the use case that we would be in.
And the interventionalist who's doing the procedure, they can control some of that imaging, voice activated, I'm assuming, and
the ideal is that they basically provide with one click or one high-level verbal command. They request the view that they need, and the system provides it and optimizes it for them. If they need to tweak it, they still have controls in which they can manipulate that image, but they do it in an anatomical space. They don't need to be an expert in the probe. They just need to, the interaction they'll use with the machine is more lateral, more medial. I want a bit, more posterior or whatever, right? A language that they understand anatomically, but not without having to be an expert in either probe manipulation or the ultrasound controls.
Wow. And where are we with that right now? In development, in clinical? How much can you share right now?
So we've built the first prototype. We've tested it on animals for safety. and we have a system working in the lab that is doing autonomous navigation and an echogenic mannequin. In parallel, we're training on clinical data sets, learning how to do reconstruction in a scalable and robust way, and teaching the system how to navigate through those clinical data sets. So we expect that over the next year, we're going to spend it building up the system, making it robust, and leading to first in human by the beginning of 2026.
And this is a little bit of a unique model for Shifamed, because Shifamed historically has been big product, big market, great product out there, but a fast follow that builds a better product and a more effective product. This is a brand new product and a brand new category.
It is. You're completely right. On the other hand, the need is so prevalent, and the market is there. And in that sense, because the spirit behind the approach from Shifamed is really de-risking the business side. You don't want to be the one, the spearhead of opening a new clinical method or a new market, because that carries a huge clinical and business risk. In this case, we're still doing ultrasound the same way that ultrasound is being done. We're not inventing imaging here, right? And we know that there's a business model that supports the deployment of the system. So given that, that pretty much takes the clinical and the business risk out of the equation, and all we need to focus on is on executing well on the technical implementation.
Got it. Right, I stand corrected. I got it now. Well, as always, Pablo, I appreciate your insight and your vision on things that are usually groundbreaking in the device industry, so we'll be watching this one closely.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this. Thanks for the opportunity.
I'm Joe Mullings from TCT 2024. Be well.